and good judgment during today's protests. I'd also like to thank everyone for their patience. I've been in close contact with the police department and city departments throughout the day. As it's been widely reported, the protests have been mostly peaceful. There have been a couple of tense moments, some arrests, and 4 police officers with minor injuries. I'm going to continue to stay closely connected and involved and informed as developments occur. This is a serious moment for us. Unfortunately, some events downtown and around the area have been canceled, but I'm confident that through it all, city staff and our police and fire departments will continue to do their jobs professionally and competently. And the chief is now going to visit with you about some of the specifics. So thank you for being here this evening. Chief O'Toole.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening. I'd like to echo what I said earlier. Our department is committed to ensuring every citizen's First Amendment rights. However, we were equally committed to enforcing the law. The safety of our citizens and our officers will always be our #1 priority. For the most part, demonstrations have been peaceful. There have been some tense moments where agitators became destructive and assaulted police officers. I am proud of my officers. They have used great restraint today. We've made several arrests today. This morning, we had 1 arrest at 14th and Washington. A male was arrested after damaging a police car. He was charged with destruction of property, failure to obey, and interfering. We had 12 additional arrests at 315 South Tucker. The charges range from assault second on a law enforcement officer, failure to disperse, interfering, and peace disturbance. We had 4 officers assaulted. 1 officer suffering an injury to his hand. He was treated on the scene and released. 3 officers refused medical attention. One of these officers was struck in the head with a water bottle. 1 officer was knocked off his bike, and the other was pinned on his bike. Officers deployed mace after an officer was struck by a water bottle. Some officers were wearing personal protection gear because agitators were throwing items at them. At least 1 police vehicle was damaged. We ask that anyone who wishes to report damage to call the police. We are committed to keeping the media and the public updated with any new information. Please follow our department's Twitter account for updates. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Chief, Chief, would you say, can we ask you a quick question, Chief? Events have not gone the way you had hoped for. Either you, Chief, or you, Mayor, can answer that. I mean, you had, certainly hope the way it started off very peacefully, and then things got out of hand. Can you just talk about that, your disappointment in that?
Well, I would not characterize it as getting out of hand. I would say that all in all, today's protests were very peaceful, and that the police exercised great restraint. And so I think that is a good outcome for a very tense day.
Obviously, the day is far from over, as we saw in Ferguson, and Chief Belmore certainly is a witness to this. Things got worse as the evening wore on. Is that a fear?
Sure.
You know, I would say that what happens at night, and I think that's what you're alluding to, right?
Yeah, Ferguson, it got worse. Is it your fear that will be?
It got worse when?
At night, during the
10
evening.
o'clock.
Right. So of course that's our fear. And it's a reasonable fear. So we know that there's a lot of events that are happening in the city. And like what we've done today, we've taken those necessary precautions. We've had many planning sessions, and we have a plan in place for just what we've said all along, to one, allow for people to exercise their constitutional rights peacefully, but also, in case there would be violence or destruction We're not going to have, destruction of property or injuries to citizens or officers. So, we have a plan in place should that happen. I would remind you, Elliot, you asked us, did things go the way we wanted it? I would probably pose that same question to the people who said earlier that it was going to be disruptive. Well, it's been disruptive. We think we all know that, but it's hardly been completely peaceful. I've had officers assaulted, so that's a good question to pose to the other side as well.
Madam Mayor, I know you were an alderwoman when Krewson happened, and you weren't necessarily in the executive office, but I'm curious what things that maybe you did differently either before or now than the previous administration, because as you know, even though the majority of protests were in Ferguson, there were some major ones in St. Louis that caused some property damage. So I'm interested to hear anything that you've done differently that's notable.
Well, to be honest with you, Jason, I wasn't in the previous administration, so I don't know exactly what they did. I can only speak really to what we're doing here today, and that is to attempt to keep everything as peaceful as possible, recognizing that people have the right to protest, and the police department will keep those people safe and try to keep our own citizens safe too. So I can't really comment on what the previous administration did.
Chief, could I ask, since during Ferguson there was one particular major hotspot where most of the confrontations took place, the protests took place. This time around, we're not quite sure where that will take place. There may be a crowd in the Central West End, the courthouse, maybe here at the police department. Are you confident you have enough resources, enough personnel to deploy them to all the different locations that you may need to?
Yeah, like I said, we've put a great plan together. We have a lot of resources. I feel confident, yes. But like you just said, there's a lot of unknowns. So we expect other locations, and we have a plan, and I think that we're pretty confident with our plan.
This is a question perhaps for both of you. I saw Governor Graves entering the building earlier. What kind of communication have both or either of you had with the governor about how to handle this?
Take that one. We've been talking with the governor's office for a couple of weeks now, and he's really just here today, I think, to be encouraging to the police officers who are working hard and working long hours, and I think that was the purpose for his visit here today.
Chief, there was a 2015 settlement offer that was made regarding the use of tear gas by a few local departments. Has any of that criteria been followed today? I believe it was, let the protesters know before you deploy the tear gas, give them room to retreat from it. Is that underway currently? A lot of our footage you can't really tell.
Well, but also in that order was that if officers didn't have the time to give those orders because they were under attack, we would be allowed to deploy, chemical munitions. And so we're following the judge's order from there. We have orders in place. An order was given a short time ago for people to disperse. Many of them dispersed. We didn't use chemical munitions. So we're fully aware of that order, and we are following that order. But again, that order also contained language in there that said if there's not time for that because we're under attack, that we can utilize chemical munitions.
Thank you all.
One more question. I know that there are like.
How many officers?
All right, Mayor Lyda Krewson and Police Chief Lawrence O'Toole at City Hall. Mayor Krewson saying this is a very serious moment for us.